What if Beauty and the Beast wasn't a love story, but a battle story? In this video, I'll show you how to paint fur, add dramatic details, and finish with blood effects that bring this intense scene to life. Here's how it all started. Primed and ready for action. You don't want to miss how this scene comes to life. Let's paint this beast. Let's begin with the beast's fur by layering down a solid base layer. For this I'm using Vallejo Dark Flesh Tone, a rich earthy brown that sets the tone for this rugged and wide look. The goal here is straightforward, even coverage. Make sure the paint gets into every crevice of the fur, setting the stage for all the details we'll build up later. This is not the darkest brown I will use. See it more like a dark mid-tone. I'll show you the shadows and highlights later in the video. And now you're thinking, how many small lines could I possibly need?
Billions and billions and billions and billions and billions.
Thanks, I think they got it. I'm starting this by mixing Vallejo Dark Flesh Tones and Beast Brown in a 50-50 blend. I'm using the very tip of the brush to add very small lines in the direction of the muscle and gravity. This part takes a good amount of time, but every strokes add personality and depth.
Wow.
These details are what brings the beast's wild fur to life. Now here's the trick. Don't stress about perfection. Fur is messy and chaotic. Take your time and enjoy the process.
You need to relax.
And before you know it, the fur will start to take on a life of its own. So the key things to remember is to keep the fur strands a bit uneven while still going with the creature's natural flow. Look at this fur picture. Even though most strands of hair are going in the same direction, a few stray ones really add to the realistic texture. You can also give the tip a little curl and let some area point in a slightly different direction. And with that in mind, I'll switch to only Beastie Brown and carefully apply it to slightly smaller areas than before. This step starts to create natural highlights on the fur, mimicking the way light hits its texture. And by doing this, the fur begins to feel alive and layered. Be careful not to change the value too harshly, as gradual layering is key to creating a realistic fur texture. Each layer should build on the previous one, enhancing depth and dimension. Now let's turn up the tension. Highlights and shadows. Imagine moonlight catching the beast's fur as he stands protectively beside Belle. I'm mixing Vallejo Beastie Brown with a hint of Vallejo Sun Yellow to keep the warmth and lighten up the color. You want to brush this on every part that would normally have a highlight, but only in small areas. The sweet part with fur is that if you go a little too crazy with highlights or shadows, you can always go in the opposite direction with darker or lighter strokes to rebuild the texture. To tie everything together, glaze over the highlights with a warm light brown in the direction of the fur and the shadows with a darker brown. This step smooths the transition between layers, giving the fur a natural and cohesive look. I'm using Speed Paint Crusader Skin for the highlights and Express Color Waste to land brown for the shadows. You could use any brown colors you have, just make sure they are very diluted as we want the glaze. For finishing touches, I'm adding an extra strands to soften the edges and make them feel real. I'm using a fine brush and I'm adding white to the mix to make those highlights pop. And if you're curious about adding realistic blood effects, don't forget to check out my Joker video in the corner. With the fur done, it's time to finish the story. Belle's knife, Gaston's wounds, and all the little details that makes this scene unforgettable. I'll speed this part up, but keep an eye on the tips I'll add on the screen as we go. And there you have it. Beast and Belle who fought for their love and lived to tell the tale. If you made it this far, you're officially part of the inner circle. And guess what? You get to decide what I paint next. Leave your suggestion in the comments and I might just make it happen. Let's make the next one even better. And who knows, maybe I'll feature your idea. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe and share this with someone who could use a little creative inspiration. Happy Valentine's Day. See you next time.